Have you ever noticed that often the most devastating truth doesn't come from strangers, but from those we love most? What hurts isn't just the lie itself, but the feeling of being betrayed within our own home, in the place where we believed we were safe. That's why this story isn't just about a forged will or a disputed inheritance. It's about how life can tear us apart inside, and yet offer an unexpected path to rebirth. Here, you will meet a woman who lost her husband suddenly, faced the envy of her own sister, and discovered that grief and strength can go hand in hand. It seems contradictory, doesn't it? How can someone who loses so much simultaneously gain the greatest of riches, self-knowledge, purpose, and the chance to rebuild? It is this paradox that will hold your attention until the very last second. And perhaps, most surprisingly, you'll see yourself in this story. Because deep down, we've all experienced, or will experience, losses, betrayals, or disappointments that force us to start over from scratch. And here's the promise. If you stay with me until the end, you won't just leave with a moving narrative. You'll leave with practical keys that can transform your real life, right now. The bombshell on the birthday, public revelation, and the will that asked for half the house. Eleonora crossed the yard feigning normalcy, still grieving, when Camilla banged her spoon against her glass and uttered the phrase that chilled the party. Leo's father is Arthur, and he left. Half the house to my son. The air grew thick and the silence deafening. Eleonora's heart sank, but her reasoning surfaced. Family drama calls for strategy, not scandal. In her grief, she leaned on what every crisis mentor teaches. Breathe, ask for the paper, read the lines and between the lines. Keywords like grief, inheritance, and truth popped into her mind, not as hashtags, but as a compass. Arthur was no longer there to defend himself, which is why the scene was even more cruel. Declaring paternity in front of balloons and cake is choosing a stage, not dialogue. Omniscience reveals the other side. Camilla, burdened by debt and fear, had rehearsed every comma. Her voice trembled slightly because necessity hardens speech. To the audience, it seemed like courage. Inside, it was despair disguised as a narrative. This is where the first practical lesson comes in. When the accusation comes with documents, don't respond with emotion. Respond with documentation, ask for the document. Take a picture, note the dates, record who listened. Limits begin when we give form to the evidence. Eleonora stifled a laugh, not out of mockery, but because she noticed the flaws. Misplaced legal terms, a signature that looked more like an imitation, a crooked chronology. Camilla was calculating the impact. If I don't act now, I lose everything, while Eleonora was outlining the steps: authenticity verification, lawyer, medical registration. For you, watching and feeling the punch in the gut, 3 simple and applicable steps. 1. Vest everything. Screenshots, audio, names, times. 2. Consult. Consult a trusted lawyer before filing any lawsuit. 2. Drive. The conversation takes place in a private setting and is recorded with consent. Emotional and legal protection go hand in hand. And interestingly, it's in the safe that certain truths were kept. Want to see how a safe changes the story? Arthur entered Eleonora's life in an almost cinematic way. A charity auction, a painting she admired in silence, and an exorbitant bid only to, in the end, hand the painting over to her. What was going through his head? This woman looks at the world with depth, while she was surprised by a gesture of generosity that seemed taken from a romance novel. It is at this point that the storytelling gains depth. It wasn't just a meeting, but the beginning of a story of complicity, respect, and enchantment. Many couples meet on dating apps today. They met by chance, and this detail gives their love a tone of inevitable destiny. Their life together began with enthusiasm, trips, the purchase of an old house that was extremely expensive for their means, renovations planned amidst laughter, and late-night pizza nights on the floor. In their thoughts, for Eleonora, each restored brick was proof that they were building not just walls, but a home. For Arthur, a rising lawyer, It symbolized responsibility and security for the family they dreamed of having. It is in this beautiful contrast that the first great lesson lies. A solid relationship is not measured only by what is achieved, but by how one dreams together. And here's something applicable. If you are in a relationship today, write a letter to the future together, how you imagine yourselves in 5-10 years. This simple exercise opens conversations that prevent silent pain. But fate has its irony. After years of failed attempts, painful exams, and shattered hopes, the diagnosis came. There would be no biological children. The shock was immense. Eleonora felt inadequate, as if her body had failed her. Arthur, despite the pain, thought about how to protect their love without letting infertility define him. This contradiction opened wounds, but also strengthened them. They chose to recreate their dreams. Trips replaced cribs, and the childless garden became the setting for dinners with friends. Here's a powerful insight. When life frustrates plans, it's possible to change the script without losing the essence. Perhaps, what you need is not to give up on the dream, but to change its format. After all, it was precisely in this space of renunciation that something much bigger and unexpected would begin to take shape. The emptiness of loss, sudden death, and the impact of grief. On that gray morning, Arthur complained of a simple headache. To Eleonora, it seemed trivial. Like so many other times, he insisted on going to work even when exhausted. Arthur was only thinking about the crucial meeting he didn't want to postpone, convinced that an aspirin would solve it. Eleonora, however, insisting he stay, carried a muffled intuition, that strange feeling that something wasn't right. When the hospital phone rang hours later, her world crumbled in seconds. Cerebral aneurysm, nothing could be done. The pain didn't come as a scream, but as a crushing silence. Anyone who has lost someone suddenly knows that life doesn't give warning. It takes off. The following days were a blur of wakes, flowers, condolences, and pitying glances on both sides. Eleonora's mind spun in circles. How do I go on from here? While Arthur's emptiness echoed in the house they renovated together, as if every wall still carried his presence. This is where practical learning comes in. In grief, you don't demand being strong. Allow yourself to feel, to cry, even to scream if necessary. Creating rituals helps. Some write letters to the one who has passed, others take daily walks recalling good memories. Still others create digital albums with photos and messages. What matters is giving form to the interrupted love, instead of trying to bury it along with it. Eleonora discovered that grief isn't a straight line, but a roller coaster. One day she seemed to accept it. The next she imploded upon seeing his toothbrush still in the bathroom. There was an internal contradiction. Part of her longed to forget so as not to suffer so much. Another part feared forgetting and losing the last connection with Arthur. It is precisely in this paradox that the universal lesson lies. True love never disappears. It transforms into a legacy. Want practical examples? Create a foundation in the person's name, as some do. Adopt a cause they championed, or simply keep one of their habits alive. Cooking that favorite recipe on Sundays, for example. These small practices are anchors that prevent total shipwreck. And for those going through this, it's good to remember, your pain doesn't need to be denied, but it also doesn't need to swallow you whole. Grief opens holes, but it also opens doors to rediscover strengths you didn't know you had. And it was precisely in this space of fragility that Eleonora's family would become the stage for an even greater shock. The birthday party, the public revelation, and the constructed lie. The afternoon seemed ordinary, but for Eleonora, nothing had been ordinary since Arthur's death. Choosing an outfit for her nephew's birthday party felt like an overwhelming weight to every detail. A dress that wouldn't accentuate the thinness brought on by grief. Lipstick that would conceal her paleness. Shoes that wouldn't hurt because she knew she wouldn't have the strength to hide her discomfort. Camilla stood before the mirror in her rented house, applying mascara with slightly trembling hands, thinking she needed to appear confident. If I show weakness, no one will believe me, she repeated to herself. Two sisters, two reflections, two destinies about to collide. The street, where Camilla's house was located, was filled with modest cars. Eleonora parked hers, adjusted the gift package on the passenger seat, and took a deep breath. Just a few more hours, then I'll return to the solitude that has become routine, she thought. As she crossed the gate, she noticed the decorations, blue balloons, cheap streamers, a banner with gold lettering that read, Lucas 1-year-old. There was a smell of freshly baked cake mixed with the cheap perfume of visitors. To anyone else, it would be a scene of simple joy. To her, it was the cruelest contrast, celebration and mourning, life and death, laughter and silence. The guests whispered. Some looked with compassion, others with morbid curiosity. It's her, the widow, they seemed to think. Eleonora felt the strange sensation of being a circus attraction, of being observed as one looks at an open wound. That collective gaze is one of the greatest sufferings of those who are grieving. The pity of others weighs more than the inner emptiness. Camilla, for her part, observed her sister's every move. She sensed the aura of tragedy surrounding Eleonora, and deep down experienced a perverse mixture, pity, envy, resentment. Today everything changes, she thought, adjusting her son in her lap. Leo, the little one, babbled innocent sounds, oblivious to what was happening. The child was the only truly pure one in that story. When everyone already had cups in their hands and lukewarm conversations filled the air, Camilla tapped her spoon against the disposable cup. May I have everyone's attention, please? The murmur ceased. The children fell silent, curious, and even the most skeptical straightened their posture. The pause stretched, as if the universe held its breath. I want to thank you for being here. This past year has been full of challenges and also secrets that I can no longer hide. Eleonora frowned, uncomfortable. Her intuition screamed, this isn't going to end well. Camilla then placed her hand on her son's head and said in a firm voice, Lucas is not Tyler's son. He is Arthur's son. A chorus of sighs filled the yard. An ant covered her mouth, a neighbor dropped his glass, and Eleonora's eyes widened. Inside, her heart raced, but her mind spun in a whirlwind. Disbelief, pain, anger. She can't be saying this. Not here, not now, not with everyone watching. Camilla continued, capitalizing on the momentum. Arthur knew he wanted to take over. Before he died, he updated his will. Lucas is entitled to half of the house. The silence turned to murmurs. People whispered, all eyes turned to Eleonora. The children's party had transformed into an impromptu court. Never react in the heat of a public accusation. The impulse would be to scream, cry, deny. But that would only fuel the accuser's narrative. The strategy is simple. Buy time. Breathe. Ask for proof. It's like in chess. When someone makes an aggressive move, don't respond hastily. Observe, analyze, counterattack at the right moment. Eleonora, holding a glass of water, spoke softly. Can I see the document? Camilla hesitated for a second, but handed over the paper. For her, that moment was a triumph. If I show it now, everyone will believe me, she thought. Her stomach ached. Adrenaline burned through her body, but her facade was one of confidence. Eleonora read it. The supposed will had grotesque errors. Legal terms were mixed up. Dates were inconsistent. And the signature was a caricature. The final stroke of Arthur's R was exaggerated, something he would never do. The urge to laugh was uncontrollable, but she restrained herself. Thank you for sharing, Camilla, she said with surprising calm. We'll talk later. That seemingly passive phrase was a powerful strategy. The manipulator wants an immediate reaction. They want scandal, they want theatrics. When they don't get it, they lose some of their power. It's like fire without oxygen. It goes out. As she left the party, Eleonora got into her car, locked the door, and let out a laugh. A nervous, almost hysterical laugh mixed with tears. Half my house? With a fake will? Arthur couldn't be anyone's father since the surgery. She has no idea what she's talking about. And this is where direct learning for the viewer comes in. Keep documents safe. Always screenshots of messages, medical reports, contracts, certified copies. Many think it's an exaggeration, but the future can exact a high price for lack of evidence. Eleonora only remained calm because she knew that in the bank vault there was a dossier prepared by Arthur, anticipating situations like that. If you own a house, register the contract at a notary's office. If you're in a relationship, don't delete important conversations that prove your integrity. If you have children, keep their medical and school records, and if you lend money to someone, get a receipt. It's not a lack of trust, it's maturity. Returning to the narrative while driving, Eleonora remembered a phrase from Arthur. Documents are like invisible shields. You don't know you need them until someone tries to hurt you. That night, Eleonora lay alone, but her mind was racing. Camilla hadn't just launched a lie, she had launched a war. But this war would be won not with shouts, but with truths. In the car, she murmured to herself, "Do you really believe you can erase 11 years of marriage with a forged document, Camilla?" The situation was like a house on fire built of straw. At first, the flames are frightening, they seem to dominate. But a real wind is all it takes to blow it all away. And the truth in Eleonora's case was kept hidden in folders, medical reports, and the original will. When someone makes a false accusation against you, remember, lies are like a flash in the pan. The truth is like the wind that blows and dissipates. It just needs to be blown on patiently. If someone spreads a rumor at work, don't respond with gossip. Save emails, gather witnesses, show objective evidence. If a neighbor makes an unfair accusation, seek a notarized statement. Yes, at a notary's office, you can even register social media posts. If someone in your family tries to manipulate you emotionally with blackmail, practice the same calmness as Eleonora. Ask for time. Don't commit in the heat of the moment. Say, "Let's talk later." That later can be your greatest weapon. In the silence of the early morning, Eleonora wrote in her diary, "Today I realized that lies can hurt, but they can never withstand the weight of the truth. I just need to wait because Camilla dug her own trap. Time, the documents, and Arthur's memory are on my side." The party ended in murmurs and sideways glances, but that was only the beginning. Camilla's lie would still be dismantled piece by piece, and each future revelation would show that the abyss was even deeper. The safe, the true will, and Arthur's invisible preparation. The morning after the party dawned rainy. Eleonora woke, early, as if a magnet were pulling her out of bed. It wasn't just the pain from the previous night, but the certainty that she needed to act. If I stay still, her lie will grow. I need my proof. She put on a simple coat, tied her hair in a hurried bun, and set off towards the bank where they kept the safe deposit box. The car felt heavy. Each kilometer was a reminder of Arthur. It was on that same street that they used to go together, laughing, to open the safe deposit box and store important documents. Now she was going alone. The manager greeted her with a respectful expression. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Eleonora," he said, making his way to the vault. She maintained a courteous smile, but inside her heart was racing. "Arthur, I hope you did what you said you would. I hope everything is here." The key turned, the metal box slid out, and inside, a world of predictions. Organized folders, envelopes with labels, certified copies. There was even Arthur's diary and his firm, handwriting. On the cover it was written, "For when life betrays me." Eleonora leafed through the real will, notarized, witnessed by Arthur's colleagues with no mention of Lucas. There were also the medical reports, detailing the vasectomy performed 2 years before the boy's conception. Arthur's thought, written on one of the diary pages, "If Camilla tries anything, I want you to be protected. Keep this in mind. Don't rely solely on love, because her love has always been competition. Reading that shattered Eleonora into pieces, and at the same time gave her new strength. How many times do we trust that family is family and fail to prepare for conflicts? The truth is that family conflicts surrounding inheritance, real estate, and money are more common than you might imagine. Real data shows that legal disputes between siblings represent a significant portion of family law cases. Therefore, here are some practical examples. If you own assets, make a will at a notary's office, even if you think it's too early. If you own a business, register a clear articles of incorporation. If you have children, appoint legal guardians in case of unforeseen circumstances. Documenting things isn't a lack of love. It's ensuring that love doesn't become a battlefield after you're gone. Beside the will and the reports, Eleonora found something that made the tears fall uncontrollably, a sealed letter addressed to her. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Arthur's handwriting filled the page. My dear, if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer here to protect you in person, but I tried to prepare myself. Use these documents to defend yourself. Don't hesitate. I know you love your family, but I also know that your kindness can be used against you. Promise you won't let anyone erase our history. Eleonora pressed the letter against her chest. He knew. He always knew Camilla wouldn't stop. And even so, he thought of protecting me, even from beyond the grave. At that moment, pain and gratitude mingled. Life had taken her husband but left her with the shield of his prudence. When she left the bank, the rain had stopped. It was as if the sky had given her back some clarity. But now came the hardest part, facing Camilla. Arthur was like that gardener who plants trees whose fruit he may never harvest, but which will provide shade for those who remain. How many of us prepare the lives of others in this way? How many of us safeguard not only love, but also practical protection? Create a physical folder with your most important documents, ID, CPF, Brazilian tax ID, certificates, contracts. Also keep a digital folder encrypted with passwords and access codes so that nothing will become a mystery if something happens to you. Leave clear instructions regarding life insurance, bank accounts, and assets. Small actions today can prevent chaos tomorrow. In the car, holding the letter, she murmured, "You thought of everything, Arthur. Even my sister's wickedness." And I still wanted to believe that family wouldn't do that. This is the human dilemma. We want to believe that blood protects, but life shows that character weighs more than biological ties. The lesson? Love your family, yes, but don't confuse love with a lack of boundaries. Back home, Eleonora organized the papers on the table. The original will, medical reports, a diary with dates and details. She separated everything into folders and labeled them. If she tries again, I won't flinch. I have facts. I have proof. I won't allow her to tarnish Arthur's memory. And here again is some practical advice. When you're about to confront a lie or accusation, get organized beforehand. Create a timeline, gather documents, rehearse questions. Don't go into the confrontation unprepared. It's like a lawyer who never enters a courtroom without a strategy. You shouldn't enter serious family discussions unprepared either. That night, as she turned off the light, Eleonora didn't feel peace, but she felt something even more important. Clarity. Camilla's lie would be dismantled, not by the strength of her voice, but by the solidity of the truth kept in files. She knew the confrontation would come, and it would come soon. But what Camilla didn't imagine was that every detail of the charade was already doomed before it even began. The confrontation, the mask falls. Eleonora spent the morning organizing the documents on the living room table. On the left, the actual will. In the center, the medical reports from the vasectomy. On the right, Arthur's diary with dates and descriptions of each unwanted advance from Camilla. Each folder labeled, each detail ready. What was going on in her heart? Fear and anger mingled, but behind it all was a strategic calm. Today I'm not going to defend myself with words alone. Today I'm going to present facts. Camilla arrived promptly at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She was wearing a new blouse, impeccable makeup, and an artificial confidence that trembled at the edges. Inside, her thoughts were, if I seem confident, she'll back down. If I stutter, she'll win. The problem is that the truth doesn't bend to pretense. Upon entering, he found 2 chairs facing each other, a coffee table with glasses of water, a tape recorder, and the folders neatly organized. I hope you don't mind if we record the conversation, Eleonora said firmly. That way we have a clear understanding of what is said. Camilla hesitated but nodded. With the recorder turned on, the initial silence weighed heavily. Then Eleonora was direct. I want you to tell me in detail what you claim happened between you and Arthur. Camilla began to speak, almost as if reciting a memorized text. She invented meetings in hotels, secret dinners, conversations that never happened. She can't prove anything, but if I repeat it with conviction, maybe that will be enough. But the danger of lies is always the same. They don't survive the scrutiny. Eleonora interrupted her with questions. Which hotel? Which room? What did he order from room service? Did he shower before or after? With each question, Camilla became more entangled. Vague answers, contradictory details. Her confidence began to crumble. The lie was laid bare. When someone lies, ask specific questions. The truth is solid. It repeats itself effortlessly. Lies crumble under pressure. It was then that Eleonora placed the first document on the table, the medical reports. 2 years before, Lucas was conceived, Arthur had a vasectomy. It was a complete procedure confirmed by tests. It was physically impossible for him to be a father. Camilla paled. Her hands trembled as she touched the papers. She tried to argue. This could be faked. No, Eleonora interrupted. The doctor is willing to provide a certificate and we have copies on file at the hospital. Then came the second blow. The original will, notarized and witnessed by 2 people. Here is the real will. What you presented is a forgery, and Camilla, forging a document is a crime. Eleonora's voice was calm but sharp as a blade. Camilla felt what she knew inside, her heart racing, her throat dry, and her mask of confidence melting away. Finally, Eleonora opened Arthur's diary. He recorded every move you made. Messages, calls, even when you went to his office uninvited. Camilla's tears began to flow. They were no longer theatrical. They were the tears of someone who felt cornered. I was desperate, she confessed, her voice breaking. Tyler abandoned us. I'm drowning in debt. Lucas has health problems. I didn't know what to do anymore. Eleonora's mind, anger and compassion fought within her. Part of her wanted to scream, "You destroyed my husband's memory." Another part saw a lost woman with a baby in her arms and her life in ruins. And here is the practical lesson. Understanding does not mean justifying. You can understand another person's pain without accepting to be a victim of it. You almost destroyed Arthur's reputation, Eleonora said firmly. You almost tarnished our love story. I could report you right now. Camilla was sobbing. I know. I don't deserve forgiveness. Often life presents us with dilemmas that don't offer easy solutions. Reporting the abuse would be fair but perhaps cruel to the child. Ignoring it would be kind, but dangerous for the future. It is on this threshold that the wisdom of placing something is born. Clear boundaries. Eleonora then said, You're going to apologize publicly. You're going to tell the truth, that you made it up, that you falsified it. After that, we can talk about how I'm going to help you. But not for you, Camilla, for Lucas. The sister looked up, confused. You still want to help? Don't get me wrong, Eleonora replied. You don't deserve my help. But Lucas does, and Arthur wouldn't forgive me if I didn't take care of him. It was as if Eleonora had built a bridge over an abyss, not for Camilla to cross, but so that the boy wouldn't fall. This is a powerful lesson. When you're unsure if you're helping someone, ask yourself, are there innocent people involved? If so, help the innocent, but with conditions. When someone is harming you but needs help, offer it with clear conditions. Example: I'll lend you money, but only if you make a formal repayment plan. In states or countries that require mutual consent, ask right at the beginning, can we record it so that we both have clarity? This completely changes the tone. If you are going to face a difficult situation, bring everything printed out, organized, and in logical order. This demonstrates strength. When Camilla left, after hours of crying and confessions, Eleonora was alone in the room. The recorder was still on, the stack of documents untouched. He looked at Arthur's letter again and thought, you prepared me for this, and even though you're not here, you're still protecting me. The confrontation wasn't over yet. There was still the family to face, the parents who had always protected Camilla, and the need to formalize an agreement. The war wasn't won, it had only just begun. Dinner with the parents, the truth exposed. The dining room in their parents' house was small, but it held decades of memories. The solid wood table had witnessed birthdays, Christmases, arguments, and heavy silences. That night, the two sisters arrived from opposing inner worlds. Eleonora, carrying a briefcase with documents, took a deep breath and mentally repeated, no anger, clarity. Camilla, on the other hand, walked more slowly, rehearsing her lines, hoping that her parents, as so many times before, would protect her from her own guilt. The parents, Donna Silvia and Seu Horacio, were already seated. Their gazes held expectation and a hint of veiled disapproval. For them, bringing their two daughters to the table was like trying to put out a fire with too much water. They didn't know if the excess would drown them or save them. Sit down, said the father in a grave voice. We need to settle this once and for all. Eleonora placed the folder on the table. Today I will not be the obedient daughter. Today I will be the woman who protects my husband's memory. Camilla, beside her, fiddled with her nails, trying to hide the trembling in her hands. Dinner began quietly, with dishes served mechanically. The atmosphere was so tense that even the cutlery clattered louder than usual. Then Eleonora spoke directly. Mom, Dad. Camilla made a serious accusation against me and Arthur. She said my husband is Lucas's father and presented a false will. I want you to hear the truth. Camilla's mind was a growing despair. If I deny it, she'll show the papers. If I confess, I lose everything. The dilemma was overwhelming. Eleonora opened the folder and placed the documents on the table. First, the original will, notarized. Then, the medical reports. Finally, Arthur's diary. Here is proof that he couldn't be a father. And here are records of how Camilla had been trying to manipulate situations. The parents exchanged incredulous glances. The silence that followed was heavy, until Donna Silvia, her voice trembling, asked, Camilla, is it true? Camilla tried to hold back the tears, but they came. She lowered her head and said, Yes, it's true, I made it up, I faked it. I was desperate, I didn't know what else to do. Mr. Horacio slammed his hand on the table, furious. Do you realize what you've done? You've tarnished your brother-in-law's name, destroyed your sister's trust, and you even tried to steal what doesn't belong to you. It wasn't just anger. It was shame at seeing his own daughter fall so low. For a father, seeing his daughter fail is painful, but seeing her fail in character is like losing something within himself. Eleonora remained calm. I don't want revenge, Dad, but I won't allow any more blackmail. Camilla will apologize publicly. She'll tell the truth to the whole family. and she'll accept my condition. I'll help Lucas in any way I can, but with clear limits. Donna Silvia wept silently. All my life I treated Camilla as fragile, as if she needed more cuddling. And now I realize that my indulgence helped create this recklessness. It's a powerful lesson. When we shield someone from the consequences too much, the world later demands payment with interest. Camilla looked up, desperate. I don't know how to face everyone. You're going to face it, Eleonora said firmly. Because it's not about you, it's about Lucas. Eleonora was like an anchor at that dinner. Amidst emotional storms, she remained anchored to the rock of truth. And that is a powerful practical lesson. In any conflict, someone needs to be the anchor, the one who doesn't get carried away by emotion, but holds firmly to what is real. Family conflicts call for clarity, not gossip. Whenever possible, present the truth to everyone, with evidence, so as not to leave room for distorted versions. Parents need to understand that treating children unequally fuels rivalry. In the case of Sylvia and Horacio, overprotecting Camilla only deepened their flaws. Demanding a public apology is not humiliating, it's restoring balance. Those who have been hurt in public deserve to be made right in public. After the confession, the food went cold untouched. The dinner wasn't about food, but about swallowing bitter truths. Camilla, in tears, begged her sister for forgiveness. Eleonora looked at her firmly and said, I can offer forgiveness, but you'll have to rebuild trust if you want it. That night the lie crumbled, but what no one imagined was that the future would bring a new test, because dealing with the exposed truth is only the first step. The greater challenge is living with the scars it leaves behind, the agreement, limits, compassion, and consequences. The morning was cold when Eleonora prepared the room to receive her sister. She arranged 2 chairs facing each other, placed a pitcher of water on the table, and in the center left the tape recorder, as if it were a third character witnessing the meeting. Today I am not just the older sister. Today I am the guardian of Arthur's memory, the protector of my home, and in a way, the only bridge of stability for Lucas. Camilla arrived punctually, but her posture revealed a rehearsed nervousness. New clothes, careful makeup, a confident walk. Inside, however, turmoil. If I deny it, she'll show the proof. If I admit it, I'll lose what little respect I have left. But maybe she'll have pity. She always has. Eleonora took a deep breath. I hope you don't mind if we record our conversation. It's better for both of us to have clarity. Camilla hesitated, then forced a smile. Of course. I have nothing to hide. The click of the recorder filled the room with solemnity. It was as if time had stopped, trapping the two of them in that instant. The confrontation. Before we discuss documents, I want to hear from you, Eleonora said. What happened between you and Arthur? Camilla looked down and began reciting a rehearsed version, as if reading a script. Secret meetings in a hotel, confessions of marital unhappiness, Lucas's conception amidst promises never revealed. If I tell her in detail, maybe she'll believe me. I always manage to sway our parents, maybe I can sway her too. But Eleonora didn't interrupt. She only asked specific, almost surgical questions. Which hotel? Which room? What dish did he usually order from room service? Which side of the bed did he prefer? With each vague answer, Camilla's mask slipped, until, irritated, she blurted out, Why does that matter? What matters is that Lucas is Arthur's son and Arthur wanted to support him. Eleonora then opened the folder and placed the medical records, the original will and Arthur's diary on the table. This matters because the truth matters. Arthur had a vasectomy 2 years before Lucas was conceived. It's biologically impossible for him to be the father. Camilla paled. Her eyes scanned the pages as if searching for a detail to cling to, but found only the cold solidity of the facts. It's over. The house of cards has collapsed. I have no more excuses. And then, as if exhausted, she confessed, It's true. I made it all up. The will was forged. A friend signed it digitally. I just wanted a way out, Leonora. I was going to lose the house. The debts were overwhelming me. Tyler disappeared, and you always had everything. Eleonora closed her eyes for a moment. The pain was great, but there was also a strange serenity. At least now there are no more masks. Camilla, what you did is a crime. Fraud, forgery, defamation. I could take you to the police and you would spend years paying for it. I know, she said through tears. But what about Lucas? He doesn't deserve to pay for my mistakes. The answer was sincere. Eleonora's heartfelt message was, it's precisely because of Lucas that I can't simply cut ties. He didn't ask to be born into this. He needs stability. Eleonora took a deep breath and spoke firmly. Okay, let's do this. You'll publicly confess that you lied, that you forged the will, and that Arthur never betrayed you. You'll apologize to our parents. In exchange, I won't report you. But there will be conditions. Camilla looked up surprised. Conditions? Yes. I will create a fund for Lucas to cover his education and medical needs. But you will have to go to therapy, enter financial counseling, maintain a stable job, and allow me to be present in his life to ensure he is well cared for. If you break any of these conditions, the agreement ends and I will take the case to court. The silence weighed like lead. Inside, Camilla felt humiliated, but also relieved. Accepting limits was hard, but facing a prison cell was even worse. You would do that for us? She asked, almost in disbelief. Not because of you, Eleonora replied firmly, because of Lucas, and because Arthur would have done the same. Family. Conflicts require clear boundaries. Many people confuse love with permissiveness, but true love also imposes boundaries that protect. Agreements need to be documented. Just as Eleonora documented everything with a lawyer and recordings, any serious family agreement should be formalized. This prevents future blackmail. Separating the person from the consequence is wisdom. Eleonora didn't save Camilla. She saved Lucas. In real life, sometimes we help someone not because of their merit, but because of the innocence of the person who depends on them. The outcome of that afternoon. When they turned off the recorder, Camilla broke down in tears. I don't deserve your help. No, he doesn't deserve it, Eleonora said without softening her tone. But Lucas does. It was the first time in years that Camilla had heard the unfiltered truth, without the protective safety net of her parents. And perhaps it was precisely this harshness that could transform her. The room resembled an intimate courtroom, where there were no robed judges, only two sisters, one wounded and the other wounding. But amidst that pain, an agreement was born that wasn't just about money or justice. It was about redefining each other's roles. From then on, Eleonora would no longer be the passive sister. She would be the guardian of boundaries, and Camilla, if she accepted, would have to learn that love without responsibility is just disguised abuse. The table was set as if for a celebration. Linen tablecloth, silverware, lined up, the lasagna that Donna Silvia always prepared for special occasions. The irony, that night celebrated nothing except the dropping of masks. Eleonora discreetly placed the recorder in the center of the table, between the plates, as if it were just another silent guest. In her mind, she repeated, "Today the truth needs to have a voice. Today, no one can pretend they didn't hear." Camilla arrived minutes later, her eyes swollen from crying before leaving home. Her heart pounded like a drum. If I stay silent, they'll find out through the paperwork. If I speak, I'll be exposed before them. But maybe for the first time, I need to admit it. Pride and despair battled within her. Dinner began in silence. Everyone ate without savoring the food, pushing their forkfuls down as if chewing stones. Until Eleonora, in a firm voice, broke the silence. "Thank you for being here. Today we need to talk about something important. I asked Camilla to share with you what she has been keeping to herself. The parents exchanged anxious glances. Donna Silvia put down her fork, already feeling the weight of what was to come. "Daughter," she began, but Camilla interrupted her, taking a deep breath. "I lied." The words fell like thunder on the table. "I said Lucas was Arthur's son. I said he betrayed me, that he left half the house to me and my son. None of that is true. I forged the will." Mr. Horacio's fork fell onto the plate, its sound echoing in the silence. "For God's sake, Camilla," he murmured, his voice heavy with disappointment. For Sylvia, it was a stab in the back to realize that the daughter she had always defended could have reached this point. For Horacio, it was a punch to the gut. Shame, anger, helplessness. Eleonora remained calm. "Thank you for speaking up. They needed to hear it from you, not from me." Camilla continued between sobs. "I was desperate. Tyler abandoned me. The debt swallowed me whole. The eviction was knocking at the door. I just thought that if I had part of the house, I could save Lucas. I didn't think about the consequences." Donna Silvia brought her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "My daughter, why didn't you come to us? Why invent such a cruel lie?" Camilla's thoughts. "Because you never charged me anything. You always solved my problems, and I thought that once again, I could manipulate fate." For the first time, she herself saw the cycle that had imprisoned her. Mr. Horacio was direct. "You tarnished the memory of an honest man. You hurt your sister when she needed support the most, and now you want us to just swallow it?" A heavy silence fell, until Eleonora, with the serenity that had become her trademark, spoke. "I'm not going to take her to the police, but that doesn't mean you'll get away with it. I've already explained the terms of the agreement, funding for Lucas, but with therapy, a stable job, and boundaries. There will be no more room for blackmail." Camilla lowered her head. "I accept. When someone makes a serious mistake, a public confession is necessary. It's not enough to apologize privately if the hurt has been exposed in front of others. This applies to families, businesses, and friendships. Parents who cover up their children's mistakes don't protect them. They only postpone their downfall." Camilla's story illustrates that overprotection breeds irresponsibility. The truth needs witnesses. By recording and exposing the incident, Eleonora did not seek to humiliate anyone, but rather to prevent the narrative from being distorted again. Mrs. Silvia was crying, saying, "But we are a family. We need to stick together." Eleonora then replied in a firm, almost cutting voice, "Being a family doesn't mean accepting abuse. It means respecting boundaries." The table, once a symbol of unity, that night became a court of law. Each empty plate was like proof of the real hunger that everyone carried. Finally, when Camilla left looking dejected, Eleonora accompanied her to the door. Camilla stopped and asked, "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" Eleonora looked her in the eyes. "I don't know. Forgiveness isn't a shortcut. It's a road. But for Lucas's sake, I'll walk it." And as she closed the door, she thought, "Perhaps this is the first time my sister will learn that love without responsibility is nothing more than abuse." Dinner was over, but the silence of that night still echoed like a ghost trapped within the walls of the house. The two sisters, after the confession, Eleonora lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about how forgiveness can be a long and winding road. Camilla, meanwhile, sat in the car parked in front of the house, her hands still trembling on the steering wheel, trying to piece together the fragments of a dignity she herself had shattered. "Will I still be able to rebuild something?" she wondered. The parents were also deeply affected. Donna Silvia, as she lay in bed, cried not only because of Camilla's lie, but because she realized she had always fueled this dynamic. Years of covering up mistakes, overlooking whims, treating her daughter as fragile when, in fact, the fragility was her own. The fear of seeing the family crumble. Seu Horacio, silently beside her, brooded over his anger. How did I let it get to this point? How could I, who always demanded so much from others, have been so blind within my own home. The following morning, Eleonora received a call from the lawyer, James. Bridget, he called her by her last name. Just to reiterate, a verbal agreement isn't enough. We need to sign official documents. This protects you and protects Lucas. Eleonora knew James was right. I can't repeat my parents' mistake, who always based everything on promises. Love without limits becomes a loophole, and a loophole becomes a disaster. This scene offers a direct lesson to the viewer. If you need to set boundaries in any relationship, whether familial, professional, or romantic, don't rely solely on words. Formalize it, write it down, witness it. It is the contract that protects the heart from future manipulation. Days later, the four met again in James's office to formalize the agreement. It was an awkward moment, sitting across from the lawyer as if they were partners dissolving a bankrupt company, but in reality they were a family trying to salvage what little trust remained. Camilla signed the document with trembling hands. "I accept all the conditions," he said in a low voice. Donna Silvia couldn't resist. "But does it have to be so harsh, daughter?" She already apologized. Eleonora replied firmly, "It's not about demanding limits." What she did was harsh. Eleonora's heart. How many times have I heard my mother soften, minimize, make excuses for Camilla? Not anymore. If they want to protect her, let them. But I will not be complicit. This is where practical learning comes in. Often, the greatest proof of love is saying no. Those who don't accept boundaries turn affection into fertile ground for abuse. In the following months, things began to change. Camilla started therapy as part of the agreement. If I tell the whole truth, I'll be ashamed. If I hide it, it's pointless. Maybe it's time to look at myself without makeup. For the first time, she confronted her own destructive patterns. Eleonora, in turn, became more involved with Lucas. She took her nephew to medical appointments, walks in the park, and short trips. And every time he laughed, she felt her heart heal a little more. I can't punish a child for his mother's sins, she thought. Practical example for the viewer. When someone in the family fails, it is possible to separate the bond with the person from the bond with the innocent people around them. If a brother makes a mistake, the nephew shouldn't have to pay the price. That's how you break the cycle of pain. But there was another battleground. The parents. Donna Silvia had difficulty accepting that her daughters would never be as close as before. One night during dinner, she sighed. "I just wanted to see you two together again, like when you were kids." Eleonora put down her fork and looked intently. "Mom, that never happened. You idealized something that wasn't real. From a young age, Camilla saw me as a rival. Pretending to be united isn't the same as being united." It hurt to hear that, but deep down, I knew it was true. It was like holding on to a blurry photograph, believing it to be a perfect portrait. Practical learning. Many families live in illusions, trying to maintain an image of harmony that never existed. Only when the mask falls can something real be built, even if imperfect. A year later, on Lucas's birthday, the scene was completely different. There were no bombshell revelations, no forged documents. Just a child smiling as he blew out the candles and two sisters who, although not close, had learned to coexist. Eleonora thought, maybe we'll never be friends again, but we can be allies in what matters. Lucas's well-being. It was like two parallel lines. They never meet, but they run side by side in the same direction. Camilla, watching her son run, felt a strange relief. She knew she owed everything to her sister, but she also recognized for the first time that she needed to pick herself up on her own. She's not going to rescue me, but she gave me a springboard. The rest is up to me. Forgiveness is not automatic reconciliation. Eleonora forgave, but kept her distance. This is a crucial point. You can release the weight of anger without needing to rekindle toxic relationships. Parents also need to re-educate themselves. Realizing that their overprotectiveness had created an imbalance, Sylvia and Horacio began to offer support in a different way, without covering up gaps. Children are compasses. Lucas became the focus of everyone's efforts. He reminded each of them that love can be preserved, even when trust between adults crumbles. Arthur's legacy, from pain to purpose. It was spring when Eleonora realized that a year had already passed since Arthur's death. The garden of the house was beginning to bloom, and the yellow daffodils that he himself had planted before leaving emerged like small torches of light against the lawn. He never got to see them bloom, but somehow it's as if he's still here, reminding me that life insists on being born, even after the cruelest winters. The pain was still there, but it had changed color. It was no longer the suffocating black of the first. Few months, but a melancholic gray, sometimes punctuated by flashes of hope. What had once been a paralyzing emptiness was now beginning to transform into energy, the energy to do something that would keep Arthur alive in another way. It was on one of those mornings walking through the garden that Eleonora had the idea to create a foundation in his name. Arthur always believed in justice, always defended young lawyers with potential but without resources. Why not continue that in his name? The project started small, almost timidly. Arthur Preston Foundation for Legal Education. But in a short time it gained momentum. Lawyer friends of the couple offered to contribute, companies donated scholarships, and universities became interested in forming partnerships. Eleonora perceived something profound. The more she spoke of Arthur in public, the less it hurt. His name, repeated in lectures, invitations, and reports, became a bridge, no longer a wound. A practical example for the viewer. Transforming grief into a legacy can take many forms. Those who lose someone can plant a tree in their memory, write a journal of remembrance, donate clothes to charities, or even create something larger, like an NGO. The essential thing is that the memory doesn't just remain in their heart, but is transformed into concrete action in the world. At the same time, Eleonora began attending a grief support group. There, sitting in a circle with strangers, she discovered an unexpected sisterhood. No one here knows me, but everyone understands the language of grief. It's as if we speak without needing to translate. In one of the meetings, a widow recounted how everyone told her she should move on. Eleonora responded emotionally, "We don't move on. We move on with them. We carry with us the love, the memory, the absence. We carry them within us." This type of insight made her a reference point in the group. Many sought her words as one seeks a lighthouse. Practical example. For those facing loss, support groups can be a real healing tool. Not just individual therapy, but being with others who have gone through the same pain. Research shows that sharing experiences reduces feelings of isolation and accelerates the emotional rebuilding process. It was at an event organized by the foundation itself that Eleonora met Michael, an ethics professor at Boston University. Unlike Arthur in almost every way, he was calmer, less competitive, with a subtle humor that made her laugh effortlessly. It's not a replacement, it couldn't be. It's just life reminding me that I'm still capable of connecting. Their first conversations were about books, philosophy, and old movies. Then came the coffees, the occasional dinners, until one day Michael held her hand so naturally that it seemed inevitable. Eleonora was startled by her own reaction. It wasn't guilt, nor pain. It was a strange feeling of permission. Practical lesson. When someone is lost, many people think that starting over is betraying the memory. But, as Eleonora's journey shows, opening oneself to the new doesn't mean erasing the past. It means honoring the love that existed, believing that the heart can, indeed, hold more than one story. Between the foundation, the support group, and Michael's presence, Eleonora realized she was no longer the same woman she once was. It was like a tree that, after losing an entire branch in a storm, begins to sprout new branches in unexpected directions. It wasn't the same as it used to be, but it was still life. She remained present in Lucas's life, accompanying him to appointments, helping with school, being the aunt who provided him with stability. Camilla, in turn, surprised everyone by fulfilling the terms of the agreement. She continued therapy, found a stable job, and gradually showed signs of maturity. She didn't become close to her sister, but she learned to respect her space. Sometimes it's not about going back to being a family as it was before. It's about creating a new version, perhaps smaller, perhaps more fragile, but more authentic. Transforming pain into purpose is a path to healing. Whether through a foundation, a personal project, or small gestures, continuing what someone represented helps keep their essence alive. Support groups are invisible anchors. Talking to someone who understands reduces the loneliness of grief. Love doesn't have a fixed quota. It is possible to honor a past love and still allow another to be born, in its own time. Blooming after winter. It was a gentle spring evening. The garden was in celebration. The daffodils that Arthur had planted months before leaving now formed a golden carpet in front of the veranda. Eleonora stood there, her hands crossed over her chest, breathing deeply the light perfume that filled the air. He's not here to see, but somehow he is. Each petal is a message. Life goes on, even when you think it can't. At that moment, there were no more compulsive tears, nor the anger that had consumed her in the first few months. There was longing, yes, but there was also peace. Her heart seemed to learn to walk on two parallel tracks. On one, the pain of no longer having him. On the other, gratitude for what they had lived through and for the strength that his love still gave her. It's as if love had crossed time and transformed into something greater, which now protects me, she thought. Life, though simple, was no longer the same. Eleonora maintained her routine of attending to clients at the design office, but now each project seemed laden with symbolism. When choosing colors for a room, she remembered the watercolors that Arthur adored. When designing gardens, she thought of daffodils. Grief didn't paralyze her. It only redesigned her way of existing. Practical example: many people after losses transform daily habits into silent tributes. Cooking the deceased's favorite recipe, using one of their phrases as a password, planting something in their memory. These are small anchors that transform absence into symbolic presence. Lucas, now 2 years old, ran around the yard, stumbling and giggling innocently. Eleonora watched him and felt a pang of emotion. He's not to blame. He's living proof that life persists even in the most painful cracks. Camilla, when she went to pick him up later, seemed more composed. There was no longer any arrogance in her eyes. In a low voice, she said, "Thank you for taking care of him, sister. No, I don't deserve your patience," Eleonora replied calmly. "It's not about patience, it's about choice. And it's for Lucas." This dialogue shows that loving someone doesn't mean turning a blind eye to their mistakes. It means choosing to get closer or distance yourself within healthy boundaries. Later that evening, Michael stopped by to take Eleonora to dinner. As they walked through the garden, he paused before the daffodils. "Beautiful," he said, leaning over to touch a flower. "They look like little suns." Eleonora smiled. "Arthur planted them. It's as if he's still reminding me that life is reborn." She speaks of him without pain in her voice. It's love that has become a memory, not a wound. And that's rare. It's beautiful. He held her hand tenderly without haste, without competing with the past. Practical example. In new relationships after losses, it is essential that the new person respects the space of memory. Loving someone you once loved deeply means accepting that the heart can have more than one level. And there's nothing wrong with living upstairs, even knowing that the one downstairs will always exist. On the balcony, returning from dinner, Eleonora observed the flowers again. Grief is like a harsh winter. It chills the soul, paralyzes it, makes you believe that nothing will bloom again. But if a person resists, spring comes, and with it, flowers that one never imagined planting. Eleonora sighed and said softly, as if Arthur could hear, "I'm not the same anymore, but we're still us." And in her heart she knew that this was the true legacy, not just to survive, but to flourish again. Grief is not overcome, it is integrated. Eleonora didn't forget Arthur. She incorporated him into her daily life. That's something anyone can do. Bring the past into their identity, not see it as an enemy. Boundaries heal. By learning to impose conditions on her sister, Eleonora showed that compassion does not mean allowing abuse. Pain can become purpose. Foundations, support groups, personal projects, all are ways to transform suffering into strength. Now that you've walked through every detail of this story with me, tell me, how many times have you stayed silent to avoid conflict, even knowing it was destroying you inside? How many times have you let a lie slide, believing that time would heal it, only to see the wound deepen? And more, how many times have you confused love with permissiveness, allowing someone to cross boundaries that should never have been crossed? It's time to turn the page. It's not enough to feel the pain, you need to transform it into fuel. It's not enough to grieve the loss, you need to build something from it. And it's not enough to forgive, you need to learn to set clear boundaries without guilt. Ask yourself, if your life were interrupted today, what legacy would you leave behind? If a storm came tomorrow, would you have roots strong enough to bloom again? So, make a choice. Apply one of these lessons today. Write down your boundaries. Start a project in memory of those who have passed away, or simply decide that you will no longer accept less than you deserve. And, if this content resonated with you, made you reflect, and gave you the strength to change, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here you will continue to find stories, reflections, and tools that can transform your life, but only if you decide to walk this path together.